Hey, Pastor Josh here. We're reading Mark chapter 9, verses 42 through 50. Temptations to sin. Whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, it would be better for him if a great millstone were hung around his neck and he were thrown into the sea. We see right here Jesus' desire for us to protect our children, for us to protect those that are watching us. See the sin here. He says, if you cause one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, it would be better than for you to be thrown into the deepest ocean, the deepest water. We need to realize that children are watching us. The next generation is watching us. They're watching everything we do. They're watching the bad that you do, and they're watching the good that you're not doing. So it's not just when you do what is wrong that sets a bad example in front of the next generations. Not only doing what's wrong, it's also not doing what is right. When you don't do what is right in front of the next generation, you're causing them to sin. You're putting a stumbling block in front of them. And may it be that we are not the cause of causing the little ones to sin. The younger they are, the more they are watching us, and that we must set good examples for their sake. And then you see, here's an attitude for us to change, for us to adopt. It would be better if you're going to cause a little one to fail, if you're going to cause trouble in the life of the next generation, it would be better for you to be thrown into the sea. We got to realize the heart that God has for us to pass on a righteousness and goodness to the next generation, especially the little ones, as they are especially impressionable to the things that we do. They will remember the things they see you do or the things they see you not do for the rest of their lives. And you don't know what memory is going to be stuck in your head. You can think of memories you have as a child that are sitting with you, come to your mind countless times. Do you think that adult that you watched do, or the adult that you watched not do you think they necessarily thought that you would be thinking about it 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 years later? I doubt it. But children are watching you. The little ones are watching you. Make sure that you're setting good examples and you're doing what is right and good. Verse 43, and if your hand causes you to sin, cut it off. This is Jesus' exaggeration. He is showing us the hatred we must have towards sin. So he says, if your hand causes you to sin, cut it off. It is better for you to enter life crippled than with two hands to go to hell, to the unquenchable fire. And if your foot causes you to sin, cut it off. It is better for you to enter life lame than with 2 feet to be thrown into hell. And if your eye causes you to sin, tear it out. It is better for you to enter the kingdom of God with 1 eye than with 2 eyes to be thrown into hell. So we just saw right there, he said, if your hands are causing you to sin, cut them off. If your foot's causing you to sin, cut it off. If your eye is causing you to sin, tear it out. Well, of course, is it your body parts that are causing you to sin? Of course not. It's your heart. It's you that is the problem. So actually, it's not like, man, I'm just going to get rid of my arm and everything's going to be great and I'll never sin again. Well, that's not the case. There's a far deeper problem. And so what Jesus is trying to point out is that we have to be radical in our pursuit of holiness. We have to be radical in our pursuit of sanctification. If you want to be, and sanctification means to become holy, means to become like God, you need to be dedicated strongly to it. So if there are situations that will cause you to sin, make sure you get out of those situations. Don't put yourself in front of those situations. Don't put yourself in places that will cause you to sin. And so there's the command. If your eye causes you to sin, tear it out. Well, of course, your eye doesn't cause you to sin, but if that's what would fix it, well, then do it. But there are other things that you can do with your environment. There's other things that you can do with your behaviors and the things that you do. You need to remove them from your life, and you need to be radical about it. Some of you are playing around with sin, and you're letting things stay in your habits and things that you do, and that you at any moment could fall into sin. Now, we look at verse 48. We have a promise. It's one of those negative promises we look at. It's not a good, warm promise. It talks about hell. It's better for us to enter into life with one eye than two eyes and to be thrown into hell. And, of course, that's not meaning that you have to be holy, like totally holy in order to go to heaven. We know that salvation is a free gift of God to us based on what Jesus did for us. But we know that those of us that are saved, if you're a born-again believer, you will pursue this holiness. But let's look at what hell is like. Verse 48, where their worm does not die and the fire is not quenched. There's a promise to claim, a promise to understand that hell is a real place, and it's a terrible place of torment where a worm does not die and the fire is not quenched. It's a terrible place. You need to claim that promise for your friends so that you will have the guts, you will have the courage to share with them the good news of Jesus Christ, that you'll have the guts and the courage to invite them to church, that you would have the guts and the courage just to say, what do you think about Jesus? That you would have the guts and the courage to say, hey, why don't you read the Bible with me? What do you think about the Bible? You would have the guts and the courage to say, what do you think about John 3:16? Because there's a place called hell, and in that place the worm does not die and the fire is not quenched. It's a promise we need to believe and understand. We need to be grateful that we've been saved from it as Christians. If you're a believer in Jesus Christ, God has saved you from that. You need to claim it for your friends that are not believers so that we can share with them the great, sweet gospel of Jesus Christ so they don't have to go to that place of eternal torment. Verse 49, for everyone will be salted with fire. Salt is good, but if the salt has lost its saltiness, how will you make it salty again? Have salt in yourselves and be at peace with one another. This little thing, be salted with fire. So sometimes it's saying that every sacrifice will be salted with fire. That's what some of the manuscripts say. It's kind of hard to even exactly understand what's this exactly talking about in connection even with hell. But we see down here that there is a command that we should be at peace with one another. Salt is good, but if salt has lost its saltiness, how will you make it salty again? We are called to be salt and light. If you remember in Matthew, one of the teachings is this exact teaching and kind of placed a little bit differently in the book of Matthew, where we are called to be the salt of the world. We're to go and be salty and to be to make it tasty and to make it to preserve it and to help it. And so the best way for us to help our world and help the ones around us is for us to be peacemakers. And it's very sad, isn't it, that sometimes Christians can be more argumentative, fight with one another more than the unbelieving world sometimes. That's why God tells us, gives us a command right here, Christ gives it, be at peace with one another. If you're not salty as a Christian, if you can't bring peace, then how on earth is there going to be peace around us? Be at peace with one another. Pray that has been a blessing to you all, and I will see you in the next video.